All right, so our client is now configured correctly. We have our application signing in, and the resulting access token has the correct scopes. We're ready to start making iTwin platform API requests. The first technique that we're going to cover is a low-level, quick and dirty, but still effective fetch call. Fetch, if you don't know, is an API for making network requests from the browser. It can be used in any modern browser, and the interface is very easy to use. You can take a look at the MDN documentation for more details on fetch concepts, but for this course we're going to use it in a very surface leveled way. So just to set the table before we start using fetch, currently my app looks like this. I skipped ahead and added some React and CSS coding that aren't relevant to this course, but basically I have a table for rendering the user's projects, and what we're missing here is the call to actually get the user's project. This is obviously just some mocked out data. The get projects function is here, and this is where we're going to actually use fetch. So let's start out with reading the documentation for fetch. There's just two arguments for the method. The first is your resource, which is your URL, and the second is an object where we're going to have our method type, which will be get, and our headers. So looking at the iTwin platform documentation, for the endpoint we're going to hit, the get my projects endpoint, we can see the URL is this, api.bentley.com/projects. The type is get, and we know that we have no required parameters except authorization. So let's program this up in fetch. So this is where I'm going to actually make the fetch call in the set or get projects method. I'm going to start by saying if I have an access token, if the user signed in, let's go ahead and get a response back by awaiting fetch. Takes two arguments. The first is the URL, and the second is that init object. First thing we have to tell, we want what method, get, and we have headers object. Oops. And there's just one, as you remember. Pass it authorization header of the access token. Okay. Now we want to say if the response is okay, we're going to read the body out of the response by waiting response.json, and then we can set our project data state variable to response body dot projects. Okay, let's see if that worked. Bring up my network tab, and we can see the request going out to the projects API, and it comes back as a list of projects. The table is filled in properly then as well. The next thing we have to do is when a user clicks on a project, we're going to show the iModel info for that project. So that's going to be another fetch call, very similar to the get my projects. And I'm just going to copy it this time because, like I said, it should be very similar. Here's where we have that to do. And here we're going to call fetch to a different URL with the same headers. And in the same way, we're going to read, or we're going to console.log the body this time, which is a useful technique. So when we click, here we have the response back, an array of iModels. And the request is here, where we made it to the iModels API. So there we have it. We're making fetch calls to the iTwin platform REST API endpoints and getting the responses back and using them appropriately. Now there are a few drawbacks with the fetch technique. The first of which is that our state member variable is of type any, which many people, including myself, would consider to be bad practice. This is TypeScript after all, so you want to have all your types to be properly defined. And any is really can cause you headaches later on in development. The second major issue is that we're basically copying the same code here, using the same headers, and we're reading back the response the same way. So it's a little unwieldy. If this was production quality code, copying code is not a great idea. You really want to reuse code if possible. So in the next lesson, we will go over how to use a client package to help fix some of these bad practices that we're running into here. But the good news is that we're off and running. We're using iTwin platform APIs, and we're ready to keep going.